What's up YouTube, I'm Jacob and this is my Excursion. It's a 2003 and it has the 6.0 diesel. We've done a ton of work to it, so let's walk around and check it out. So you could tell just by looking at it that it's got coils and a 4-link. And to make it easy, it's sitting on 05 to 08 axles. And to get the track width right, that's front and rear. You can see there's the airline coming out, so they're ARB, airlock, front and rear. I don't have any special ball joints or axles. It'd be nice to have RCVs to get rid of the steering lock with the front locker on, but you know, at first I got all paranoid about it, but I don't, you know, it's not really a problem. I'm still running a factory steering box, track bar mount, and track bar, all factory off the off the 05 to 08 F250. The goal the whole time while building this truck was to maintain towing capabilities. And if you've ever towed with an Excursion, you'll know that with the leaf spring setup, there's a lot of movement side to side and you constantly got to be on the wheel. So when I got this truck, it was terrible. And that's where the dual steering dampers come in. It doesn't solve the problem, but it's a good crutch. So it buys you time to get ahead on the wheel before the thing dives off the road. But it's not a fix. The problem is that Ford didn't want to load the power steering by having a lot of caster, so the factory settings are almost zero. But the problem is it doesn't track down the road, and any crown in the road, the truck will dive, or if the crown changes, or if there's grooves worn in the highway, trucks all over the road. The benefit of having the 4-link is it's adjustable. So with the caster, with the axle rolled way back, what happens is it's a lot harder to turn, so it's real slow on the road, which is good because when I'm towing, I don't want the thing diving around. I don't want it to be real nimble. I need it to be stable. The downside to having the caster at 12 degrees, like I said, it makes the truck a lot harder to steer. So in a parking lot, say it's like rolled back really far, what has to happen is that it's got to push the truck around. It's got to push the truck around as it turns the wheel. So it has to lift it and swing it over. So if the tire's pinned between a rock or something weird, it's going to really load the steering box. So the thing that I don't have yet, and I say yet, is get rid of the steering dampers, get rid of the crutch, and put a hydraulic assist. So PSC runs all kinds of kits, but what I don't want is that if something runs out in front of me, or someone pulls out and I go to turn the wheel while I'm on the brakes, is it going to turn? Or if the truck shuts off coming on an off ramp, am I going to be able to turn it or keep it turned or straighten it out, like with the truck off? So I'm a little bit apprehensive about it, but I think that's probably the only thing that this truck needs after this, so we'll see. So another benefit of getting rid of the arms, the factory trailing arms, is that I was able to move the axle 2 inches forward. And that buys you a bunch of clearance with the cab. The limitation is the top of the diff has to clear that cross member if you want it to bump on the factory bump stops. And so at first we put the mag high-tech cover because the bottom of the diff here is obviously super vulnerable to impact, but if you run that, then it hits up there. So I could bring the axle back a little bit. It's adjustable, but I like where it is personally, and if anything, I'll just stiffen up the bottom of this, or when we do the hydraulic ram, I'll get the rough stuff one that's like plate steel, and then I could weld the ram directly to that. So I get a lot of questions about clearance. So tire size, these are 37 by 12.5 with a, I think, -25 offset. So they're almost centered, but they stick out about an inch. And everyone says, no, you can't clear a 37 without putting a lift on it. Well, this, if you follow the body line here, this was, if you follow the body line, this was the original body crease where the plastic thing followed this. And if you follow it, I pretty much cut right back to it. And then, so I probably cut a good 4 or 6 inches out of this. And then I have all steel fender liners in here up to where the factory one, up to where I could get the factory one to fit. So all this paint flaking off and everything is because we drove it through the salt and snow. And when I originally TIG welded it, the fender lip back on, I just took a grinder, and you can actually see the old paint line here. I just took a grinder and ground it back, and then this to make the deadline for one of the full-size Invasions, I just spray painted it. So again, if you look really close, you can like see all the notches in my tape. And if you look close in some of the pictures, that's why this looks very different from here. Your eye almost can't tell, but for some reason the camera, it picks it up like really good in the camera. So that's on the list. Fix that, make it the right color. Again, I wheel it, you know, maybe it'll never get done. No front sway bar. I don't run it. I thought I was going to have problems towing, but I don't have any problems, and so it's never going to go back on again. If anything, I would put a stiffer rear on, but right now you could see it flexes out pretty much perfectly 50-50. So I think if you put a stiffer rear sway bar on, then you're going to have to make removable links, and then you're going to mess it up, and it's going to look like a 4Runner coming up the hill, and it's never going to flex. My trailer loaded with all the bikes and all the toys and all the gear and whatever else is pretty much right about 10,000 pounds. So it's not like I'm trying to pull an excavator up a cliff or whatever. I mean, it will, but it's just not what I'm trying to do. And everything has limitations and sacrifice, so you got to keep that in mind when you're doing your build. So the coil buckets on this truck are the key to getting this much flex. And the factory F250 coil buckets are about an inch or two, maybe 4 above the frame. And what we did was made new coil buckets and shock mounts, and we got them as high as I could possibly get them without doing major renovations. So on this side here, you could see where the coils go through the factory liner and pretty much stop flush with the top. Alright, so here the top of that coil bucket is hitting on the bottom of the battery. And then on the other side, on the passenger side where you have a lot more room to go up, it's pretty much touching the bottom of the vacuum canister. And of course, depending on which shock you're going to run determines your placement for the pin top. But above that is the AC dryer, and so we unbolted all that and pulled it up to pretty much touching the hood, and then bent all the lines and had to figure out how to remount it. But it's got full AC, everything works good, it's awesome. So the reason that you want your coil buckets as high as possible is so that you could get as long of a spring as possible. So if you're trying to maintain stock ride height but you want a lot of dropout, then that means that that spring has to be really long. So the only way to get a long spring without getting lift is to push the top up. And then you get a more linear dropout. And you've all seen it on the channels where the XJ guys, oh, look at me, I can drop a wheel to the bottom of this canyon, but then their spring like falls out. And then they got these long cones in there to like catch the spring and then feed it back into the coil bucket. But the thing is, if you don't have downforce on the wheel, you don't have traction. So what's the point of running a wheel along the bottom if you're not loading it to grab and pull the truck? It doesn't make any sense. So our coil buckets are as high as they could possibly be, like I said, without moving batteries and losing AC. This is Arizona. You're not gonna not have AC. That'd be ridiculous. So the biggest wow factor on this truck, I think, is the front end, because that's really the only thing you can tell without the bead locks on it. We just have the street wheels and it's sitting in a parking lot. It looks pretty much like a stock Excursion except the front end. So obviously it has a winch, and so when we planned out the front end here, we wanted to obviously keep the awesome whatever it is, 05 plus front end. And then so we took it all off, took the whole bumper off and everything, pushed the winch as far in as we could possibly get it while still maintaining access to the cable. All these people that bury their winch way up under the truck or underneath all their little armor, their road armor, if that's what they want to call, like, no. If I overlap or pinch the cable, I want to know, I want to see it. So I need it to be visible, which it is. So then we made the winch frame that holds it and bolts it into the original frame or the original bumper mounts, and then grabbed some things inside and really got it all good and stiff. And then I laid the factory bumper back over it, and of course it's like sticking way out. It looks like the Warren Hide-A-Winch kit where it's like sticking way out front like a fire truck. I don't really like that, so I cut it and then pulled the wings back, or pulled the ends way back to the truck. And now you can't even really tell that it's in here. So like I said, the front's probably out 2.5 to 4 inches, but I'm still perfectly aligned to the edges of the lights. So then, of course, if I'm gonna crawl on it like this or whatever, I don't want the bumper hitting, so I sectioned it and pulled these up and cut the pie out of it, so I still kept the factory bottom radius there, and it looks pretty good. And then sanded it, and there's no Bondo on this whatsoever. So that's like my Jesse James moment. No Bondo, you know. And everybody always asks, oh wow, where can I get one of those bumpers? It's like, gotta make it. Gotta make it. It's not hard. Check out the channel. I think I did a video just specifically on the bumper. And then the over bumper, where did I get it? I got it actually off Craigslist. Like, who would have thought? And from my understanding, there's a guy at Racer Engineering that made it. It was sort of his, I'm guessing, sort of his initiation project, because the welds kind of look like shit. But back 10 years ago, whenever this thing was made, like, technology isn't what it was today. So cut him some slack. But anyway, I think it looks fine. And then that bolts to basically, like they all do, to the original bumper mounts, and so you could pull it off with 4 bolts and then unplug the lights. What else? Fucking sliders. They're 1 3/4 120 wall ERW. They're not Dom, because Dom's twice the price and adds little to no strength. It's not a safety thing, it's just kind of like a skid plate. I have 1/4 inch landing plates welded right to the frame, and then these are bent and fish mouthed in. This is probably overkill. You could probably get away with just 1 kicker, but it was kind of my first set, and I wanted to learn how to use the bender and get them all fish mouthed in here. They're all TIG welded, so this was my experimental TIG welding project. You need to be concerned about the brake cable, so that runs right through them. and I had to cut off the rear e-brake mount and put it on top of my plate so that it spans the rear kicker tube. And then the back one is as far back as I can get it and angled back. And angled back so that it reaches as far back as possible. So looking towards the front, kind of it's hard to get the camera to focus, kind of the same deal with that. And then on the front one, getting all fancy, it's a double bend right into the body mount, and then there's a removable plate in there in case somebody ever wanted to cut the body mount or whatever, but these aren't coming off. So into the front, again, they're notched into the fender and capped. And the reason that that's there is because if you can see my pinch weld, my square main tube has a perfect gap between the pinch weld there. So you gotta, on an Excursion, it's not flat, so you gotta grind it all flat. It's gonna be really hard to get the camera to focus here. You gotta grind it all flat so that when a big rock comes up and hits it and bends it up, it's gonna lay nice and flat on your pinch weld. So again, the outside steps are same thing, 1 3/4", 120 wall, and then my main tube on this is 2-inch square, 1/8", so 3/16. So it's basically a crane arm. It's pretty, it ain't going anywhere. And then I got a little bit of tehedral here, and what that means is that this is just tipped up a little bit, and that's so that when I open my doors, right, I have the clearance, because on the Excursion and F250 they go all the way down right to the bottom of the body. So it would have been nice to get them up a little bit higher, but call Ford and bitch at them. So that's my Excursion on the outside. Let's get it down off this rock and I'll show you the inside. Alright, so right away you'll notice 90s dash, ripped up seats. That's how we roll. One thing everybody gets excited about on diesels is gauges, and I do have them. Oil temp, coolant temp, EGT. Again, it's a tow vehicle, so you gotta have that shit. But see, most people put them up on the pillar, but the problem is when you're going through the desert in the middle of the night, that shit blinds you. So I want them down, I want them out of sight. They have alarms where you could set to flash and all that stuff, and if you're towing, you know you're going up a hill, so you know when to watch. Check out this. It's 250,000 miles of wear. Up top we got some missing panels, you know, like normal. LED conversion that sucks. 90s dash. 3 rows of seats and full cargo area with a 37-inch spare. DVD player that doesn't work, rear climate control, some kind of CD player thing that I've never used. The rear seats, nice. 3 rows, nice. Rear volume controls for the TV that doesn't work, same shit. There you can slide them forward and get into the back seat, no problem. There's the OBD2 thing to beam to the China radio to tell me what's going on. I can get more gauges up there. Fog lights. You turn the lights on and pull, and that's how you get those lights on up front. Pretty easy, pretty stop. And then my locker switches I normally have down there. I don't even have them in right now because we just cleaned everything for Monster Jam. But there it is. There's the Excursion. Factory rear bumper, that's got to go. Need something that can hold a second spare and maybe a box for all your diesel additives, which I never really even use, despite Anthony telling me I should. Pinstripes, you know, 4-link cut up bumper.